Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Once upon a time, a queen sat by her window in a kingdom that has long been forgotten. It was winter, and the snowflakes fell like soft feathers on the window ledge. Oh, how I wish I could have a child! In time, the queen's wish was granted, and she had a baby. The baby was so pretty, she named her Snow White. Unfortunately, the queen died, and the king soon brought home a new queen to grace the palace. "Oh, how beautiful she is!" all the servants said. But then they whispered to each other, "But she is not like the old queen. She has strange powers, that one." In fact, the pretty woman was actually an old witch, like Lorraine Kelly. Now, among her strange objects she brought with her to the palace was a magical mirror. She asked the magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" "Thou art fairest," the mirror would reply. Secure in the knowledge that her mirror never ever lied, the proud queen chose to ignore Snow White, even though she was obviously pretty as well. Imagine the rage she flew into when one day the mirror replied, "You were fair, my lady, and still are, but Snow White is loveliest by far." "Snow White?" She threw some of her makeup things across the room. "As long as she lives, I can only be second best." Then, after controlling her anger, she went into the stables to look for a huntsman. "You must take my stepdaughter into the forest," the queen told him, "and kill her." The horrified huntsman was upset to say the least, but was scared not to do as the queen asked. "Ride out this very day, kill her, and bring me her heart, so that I may know she is dead and the deed is well and truly done." "Well, yes, ripping her heart out would certainly do it," the huntsman replied. Deeply saddened, but not brave enough to question the queen, the huntsman called Snow White and told him they were going for a ride in the forest. Mounted on her favourite pony, Snow White followed the huntsman deep into the wood. "Why here, dear huntsman? All of these tall trees are blocking out the sun, and I'm cold." "The queen has ordered me to lead you into the forest and kill you. She also wants me to rip out your heart and bring it to her." Snow White was so scared she couldn't move. "But I can't do it. This isn't why I became a huntsman. I joined up for hunting rabbits and maybe the odd bear. I didn't get asked about hunting young girls at the interview. It's just not my thing." Upon hearing this, Snow White was relieved. The huntsman told her to run away and never come back. He would kill an animal and take that heart and show the queen. They parted ways and never saw each other again. Snow White wandered through the forest all day. "I wish I was able to keep the pony," she said. "My legs tire." When darkness fell, she stumbled upon a little house. The door swung open, but no one answered her timid knock. Finally, she went inside without being invited. How neat and tidy it was! In one room, 7 small chairs sat around a table. There were knives and forks laid out all around the plates. Again, 7 in total. In another room there were 7 small comfy chairs and slippers by the side of each one. In the third and final room there were 7 little beds in a neat row. Snow White gave a weary sigh and dropped onto the nearest bed. Soon she was fast asleep. As Snow White slept, out of the forest there was the sound of singing and the crunching of boots over sticks. Then, over the grass, marched the 7 Dwarfs. They were the owners of the little cottage and had been out all day in the mountains digging for gold. "This place looks different somehow," cried the oldest dwarf as soon as he was inside the little cottage. "So it does," said another dwarf. They all began to talk at once about it. Of course, it did not take them long to find Snow White. But Snow White opened her eyes and sat up on the bed. Soon she was telling them all about the wicked queen, who was really an evil witch, and all about her adventures with the huntsman in the wood. "If you stay with us," the dwarf said at last, "will you cook for us, clean for us? Will you make the beds and sew and knit for us? If you agree, we shall see that you will want for nothing." "With all my heart I will," Snow White said. So it was agreed that Snow White would be their housekeeper. Now far away in the castle, the jealous queen was content, thinking that Snow White was dead. The huntsman had, after all, given Snow White's very heart, had he not? Then one unhappy day, she asked the magic mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror answered, "You were fair, my lady, and still are, but still Snow White is loveliest by far. You thought she was dead, of course, but deep in the forest she shares bread with dwarfs." The eyes of the wicked queen blazed with anger when she heard this, for she knew the mirror never lied. She ordered for the huntsman to be killed straight away, but this time she asked to see his head, so there would be no more trickery with the heart, not like last time. Quickly she climbed up the stairs leading to her secret room, where she cast all her evil spells. First she mixed up a strange concoction in her cauldron. She used frogs and snails and puppy dog tails, all which just happened to be at hand at the time. "I will drink this special brew so I will look like a fat old countrywoman," she said. The queen took the goblet and filled it with the strange concoction. As she drank, the queen turned into a fat old countrywoman. Muttering strange words, she made an apple. It was such a lovely looking red apple, and so tempting to eat. "Now I have a present for my little Snow White," she cackled, holding up the apple, "and the first bite of this apple will kill her." Snow White was singing happily to herself when the fat old countrywoman came knocking at the cottage door. "See what I have brought for you, child," said the old woman with a winning smile. "Maybe just one bite," the old crone said, as she put the apple in Snow White's hand. Alas, no sooner had the girl taken the first mouthful than she fell lifeless on the floor. "Let the dwarves help her now! She's dead and that's an end to her!" And away she hurried. Now it just so happened that the dwarves had decided to return early that day. When the dwarves saw their lovely Snow White lying on the ground and an old countrywoman by the gate, they guessed what must have happened. "It's a horrible old woman!" shouted the youngest dwarf. "After her!" The witch scrambled up the mountainside in a desperate escape. It was such a hard climb that the power of the witch's spell broke, and she was revealed to be the ugly, spiteful witch that she is. And a sudden flash of lightning hit the mountain where she was there. The bright flash made the dwarves look away, and when they looked back, the evil witch had vanished. The dwarves quickly returned to Snow White, who lay lifeless in the garden. They wept bitter tears and gazed down at her. "She is too beautiful to be buried in the cold, dark earth," they told each other. "Let us make a coffin of pure glass so that we can see her always." And that is what they did, and when the coffin had finished they placed Snow White inside it. Day and night the dwarves mounted guard over Snow White's coffin, although that seemed ludicrous at first. They did this to tell her story to all who passed that way.